Hello and welcome. This is going to be such a cool and awesome episode. I'm so excited that you are here with us today. And here's why. The reason why I think this is such a very important, awesome, extra special episode is in our research, we inadvertently found out that the redemption arc for female characters is so rare that there are articles online about how few movies and TV shows feature a redemption arc for female characters. That instead, female characters tend to be locked into either, the like always noble character or always a villain, but there is no in between and there is no improvement for these characters. They are only ever allowed by showrunners and screenwriters to be like these very two-dimensional sort of characters where they don't have a backstory, at least nothing of any interest, and so they're glossed over. And that's a serious problem. And so to help me today discuss all the nuance and the feminism, I said it, it's the F word of the 21st century. It's Tom. Hello.
Hello.
Apparently there's another update on YouTube because I cannot stream it on the TV.
Always something.
It's always something. That's why I keep looking at it, trying to
Although I've been having network problems on my phone for the past couple days, so
there. I got it on the the YouTube app that removes the ads.
Yeah.
At least stream on that, if not the actual YouTube app, whatever.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting, the whole there's not that many of these.
Right.
But all the ones I eventually found and remembered are really good stories. Most people really enjoy these stories in particular.
Mm-hmm.
They often remark how good and engaging and that they want to watch it again and again.
Yeah, that they're compelling. Which you can't say that about all stories. Even all pulp stories. They're not always compelling. And I think it's kind of interesting that at least the few stories that have female redemption arcs in them are or do tend to be compelling. I mean, I'm not saying there are not bad ones out there because, oh, believe me, there's bad everything out there.
I think it also shows that it might be people tend to not write these unless they feel secure in their story is going to come across the way they want it to.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see just, a fill in the blank usage of the story.
Well, I think that's in part because it's so rare that you really have to have conviction to tell this tale. Because it's been done so few times, at least in the last 100 so years, that it doesn't have a lot of strong tropes.
Yeah.
And I could see where that would make other writers hesitant. Because they're like, oh, but Glory, I'm a hack writer. I don't feel comfortable writing something without a lot of strong tropes because tropes are my bread and butter. This is how I communicate with my readers. And I absolutely get that. But that's one of the things that we really want to talk about today is how to figure out the basics of crafting a redemption arc for, your female coded characters. Because it's not easy. And also, I just want to point out, if we're really talking about what is not easy, What is really not easy is redemption arcs for non-binary characters. Non-binary and gender fluid characters. Like, there's like, if you're interested in something challenging, there you go. There's your challenge. Because pretty much you can write the book on that. Because there are so few examples of it. There's pretty much no tropes. If we're talking about non-binary and gender fluid coded character redemption arcs, there's just nothing. Not much anyway. I mean, like,
there's tropes for them as villains,
but that is not the same as a redemption arc tropes.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, there are tropes for part of it, but the other part you do have to sort of come up with.
Yeah, I mean, there's tropes for everyone as a villain, but that doesn't make it where it's obvious of how to redeem them.
Yeah.
Before we go much further, I want to say hello to Maggie. Hello, I don't know if you are still here, dear, but we could only hope the winds will die down for the next 3 hours. And then Carrie is here. Carrie says, I've seen 3/4 of the movies in the poll, and I'm sad it won't let me pick all 3 because they're so good. Carrie is watching from work. We'll be pausing, then speeding up to catch up. Enjoy.
It's a good way to do it. It's one of the things I do enjoy about live videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Is that where you can just run it at 1.5 speed and catch up. You don't have to just skip over all of it.
Right. And there is a poll in the chat. Favorite redemption arc movie: V for Vendetta, Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, Disney's Frozen, and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Good luck making a choice.
Pick your poison.
I feel y'all. It is pretty much a Sophie's choice.
Yeah, because I like all of them. I like all of the movies listed. So,
I mean, and that's what I noticed. Like, these are all good movies.
Yes.
Like, and we pretty much listed everything we could find that is an actual redemption arc story for women. There just aren't that many.
There really aren't.
I mean, but on the other hand, the list shows that there is definitely a thirst. And that you can put it in many ways. Like V for Vendetta shows it doesn't have to be the main character. But it can still be, from their perspective without them having to carry everything. I guess the internet's having some problems.
Yep. Yep. Something after choice. What'd you say?
The female redemption arc character doesn't have to carry the whole story. Like we see in V for Vendetta. We see this spread out across multiple characters. But that was one thing I did note of in most of these. That was a bit different from the usual story idea is usually there's multiple characters having their own kind of redemption story. We definitely see that this is more of a common situation where it's become toxic and dangerous because so many different people have come to this situation. It's not just one, we need to recover. We have a lot of people we need to recover. I mean, I love how much in Frozen they keep mentioning that Anna's interest in Hans is very broken. This character, what is wrong with your mind that you want to marry someone you just met a few hours ago? We are all worried for you. It's not just Elsa who needs to be redeemed. There's a lot of redemption to go around. Same thing with Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's a lot of redemption. And so we get to see it from different angles. And I think that's also what makes these stories so good is it's not a monolithic story,
Mm-hmm.
which the more classic redemption arc tends to be, and it tends to be a slog.
I don't really care for it with the whole male redemption arc, where that's the pretty much the exclusive story going on. It's like, oh, so boring. I do not relate to this character.
Yeah. Of real redemption arcs that feel earned in a story take a while for the character to change. You can't change them in just 24 hours or less. Like it just doesn't, it won't feel real. And so if it's just a single character, like we tend to see with a lot of male redemption arcs, it's a bit of a slog through parts because they're still having to carry the story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we all would like a break.
I think that's one of the things I actually liked about the Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. It's really about two different characters' redemption arcs.
Yeah.
And that was more interesting because we see how these two characters' lives are intertwined and how one's, I'm going to say it, villainy, because their behaviors were, especially earlier in their life, it was definitely not constructive.
Yeah.
And it led to the second character's villainy, and then they're setting them then on the path of redemption, just as the first character was also set on the path of redemption eventually. Let's see. Maggie says, Bunny says they have to be good for her to have any interest, and boys can never be redeemed, but boys are weak. Weak AF. Says the sweat gave her girl.
Sweetest. I'm assuming sweetest.
Says the sweet gamer girl.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something, and it's so highly, I just think it's amazing that this is so controversial, but I get why some people don't like it, but I'm going to say it. You give me a redemption arc of a straight white cis het male, and I'm like,
I'm so old. There's the definition I did not know.
thank you. A sweat is a pro level gamer. So of like let me put it this way, you're a cis het white male and you have turned to villainy. Boo hoo. Congratulations. You got life on the easy mode and it still sucked hard.
So you had to go to the easiest mode.
Right? Of like, oh no, your parents did more, you poor baby. Like the rest of us are living life on harder modes that we did not sign up for, but here we are. Yeah, the villainy is easier to see. So now show me why you still found a reason to move forward and move to a more positive way of life and try to leave the world a little bit better than you found it. Show me how you still found things redeemable about the world that was worth redeeming yourself for. Because life is so hard, y'all. Even on the quote easiest mode, I get it. If you're like a cishet white male, I get it. Life is still hard. The Harvard study was right. Everybody experiences terrible heartbreak and setbacks and things. Even the richest, wealthiest people. I get it. But it's not compelling for me. I mean, a character has already started life on the easiest mode possible, and they're still like, so hard. It's like, yeah, it is, sweetheart. It's really hard. Tell me something I don't know. Tell me something like, what is it about this world that you think is so redeemable that you're willing to redeem yourself? Because I need hope. I need a reason to keep moving forward. I need like to be renewed about why am I trying hard to not be a villain. And that's what, as a reader, I'm looking for. So, even though next week, in fact, we are talking about, male redemption arcs, and here I am bashing them.
We
And
will
so, what I'm
find the
really going
good
to talk about,
ones.
don't worry, we'll find the good ones. And also, we'll find about, like, how is it possible to do those redemption arcs and it not be boring as hell? But here, like, it's not like, so, okay. And again, playing that devil's advocate of, but Glory, cishet white female redemption arcs. I agree. Oh, boo-hoo. You started off life white, heterosexual, and cisgendered. Woo, good for you. Did you also start off with money? Talking about Frozen. So, but so when you do have that, and I get why sometimes, yeah, your main character is going to be cishet white. How do you still make it compelling for everybody or for most people? Okay, because I really hope that overall writers are not aiming at a very narrow group of readers, such as I only want cishet white readers. Like, I'm really hoping that we are not inspiring anybody to do that, but instead to appeal to a more general audience of just, voracious readers. That's always my goal, is to appeal to people who read a lot and who cherish what they read. So, how do we make it more compelling? There are answers to this. And we've even discussed this week, Tom and I have discussed how to make it even more interesting by intertwining other tropes as well as other character arcs. So even if you're a pantser, we're going to try our best to make it feel approachable for you. Because I know that, like, why are you here watching? Well, because you want to be a better writer, but also you don't want to work too hard at it. Because if you really wanted to be a better writer, you'd be like, I need to get a degree in it. And, instead you're here watching YouTube. So, okay. So you want to be better, but you don't want to work too hard at it. We get it. We're trying to help. So, Tom, where shall we start?
I mean, maybe we should start with Frozen because it is definitely one of the simplest. Like,
and it took 60 years for the Disney company to figure out.
it took 60 years and one story, I mean, one song from a particular frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
Is really what it was, is going, oh, okay, there's the frame of reference that actually works. But like, if you watch Frozen with a critical eye, you'll notice, like, at most, this is a chapter book story. Like, there really isn't that much dialogue. And the scenes aren't that hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a relatively simple story. So it's an easy one to, understand how this works and how we see these little changes throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Of and part and but probably what we should start with first is the difference between a redemption and a monster character.
Okay, because that is something Tom and I discussed. Here's the problem with making a monster and then being upset when your readers relate to him. If you want to make a monster or a villain that you don't want your readers to relate to, you cannot give them a backstory. Because backstories are relatable. Everybody once upon a time was a littler version of themselves. And they were new to the world, and they stumbled a lot, both metaphorically and literally, because little legs. And they were probably adorable because big head, little body. because that's how, mammals work. So if you want your readers and audience members, because if we're also talking about screenwriting, if you want your audience members to relate to a character, give them a backstory that you introduce. If you don't want them to relate to them, we can know nothing about their history. And it's that simple. And yet, do you know how many writers object to having to toss a backstory? Like, they get mad and then they go off and it's like, well, I'm glad they already paid me for my advice. Like, but it's just this simple. If you want readers and audience to relate, to ship that character, give them a history that you introduce in your story. You don't have to introduce a lot of it, by the way. You literally only need 1 or 2 flashbacks, and there's a backstory right there. There's enough.
What a backstory does for a character is it sort of gives them an excuse for their future behaviors. Of they act this way because they are responding to how they experienced life earlier. And even though we all know this about everything that can think and has memory does this. Once you say, though, what it was that caused these behaviors, your readers will then start going, oh, so if this happens, then they can be fixed. They'll just change. Even if you know this is not true about your character, they will start going, well, we can unwind the knot that created, the malevolence here by just showing them that these thoughts aren't correct. And that is the real difficulty with the background, is once they know, they are no longer fearsome. They are understandable. Their behaviors have reason of, and that's why people complain about later horror movie monsters, is once you start giving the horror movie monsters background, you know why they're going to behave this way. They're no longer surprising. They are predictable. They are relatable. They are no longer quite so monstrous. And that is why so many people ship and enjoy 50 Shades of Grey, as well as what it's a fanfic of, the vampire stuff, Twilight. Even though Twilight is so beyond cringy.
Yes. I'm sorry, why is a 100-plus-year-old going to high school just to pick up chicks, y'all? Nasty. Just looking for victims.
But we hear this background and how he got sick when he was that age, and it's like that doesn't make up for these things.
Doesn't make it right. That's the same. Well, because I got HIV when I was 17, I shall now give it strictly to 17-year-olds. Like, again, that's not right.
But this is the effect of giving your characters backstory. At least some of your audience will start relating to them. And then...
And also, if you're finding your alpha and beta readers aren't relating to a character that you want them to relate to or to root for, the answer then presumably would be that you need to look at, well, what backstory have I given this character in the story? Because that's another complaint I've heard from writers of nobody actually likes my main character. They say the character's not relatable. And it's like, have you really told any history about this character? And specifically, have you told anything about this character when they were a child? Because I think as humans, we're suckers for childhood stories. Like, you could just make up a childhood story about this rock. Once upon a time, this rock was part of a much bigger rock that came out of a volcano. And that was an thrilling experience. And all of a sudden, everybody's oohing and awing over a rock. I have done this. in my late teens, early 20s. What, Tom?
Just thinking of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
The Roxy with the googly
Yeah.
eyes.
I'm gonna jump. Well, I'm gonna jump after you.
No, don't do it. It'll break you. I don't want to be here in this world without you. My heart.
But again, that's where we need a lot of different scenes to see both the monstrosity of their behavior and then why do they feel the need to change. What is it that convinces them of this? And it's never just one thing, because you have to change their world perspective.
Yeah, you would need to create a character where you figure out what broke this character, because something had to have broken them for them to become villainous. Something breaks inside you where you no longer care about the keeping the world good or helping the world stay good. Something breaks. And the character then makes a decision to just take care of themselves because they believe no one else will, or people are not doing it in an adequate way anyway. And then something has to glue the character back together. Something about the world has to happen where they're like, well, maybe it will be okay. Maybe the world does still have goodness in it, and that I want to help protect that goodness or help encourage that goodness. And that is essentially a redemption arc in summation. Everything before and after is just everything before is the things that will eventually lead to the redemption, and everything the after is the character trying to heal what they themselves broke in the world when they were broken.
You know, as we like to call it, the anti-hero.
Yeah. So Frozen, Tom. What should we talk about Frozen?
Well, why don't you just go piece by piece?
I don't what?
So how do we call it, you know, Frozen, you know, is a child story, so it is very piece by piece, very simplistic. So we start by seeing how the monster was created. And the monster was created by
By their parents.
By a misunderstanding. And this is definitely something that a lot of newer writers don't appreciate when they're trying to create conflict, is the
That
difference
villains
in
don't have to make villains, that you can just have misunderstandings make villains.
that you can have a lot of conflict through just the different definitions of the same words. That people can agree on the answer, but entirely disagree on the application. You know, the beginning of Frozen goes over the different concept of what is control. To the trolls, control is like when you train a pet or you train an animal. You can tell them what behaviors you want, what behaviors you don't want,
Mm-hmm.
and when and commands to do specific behaviors at a specific time. You know, that is control. They are.
And that is definitely an adequate definition of control. When we talk about classroom management, and there will always be a line when assessing a teacher of how does the teacher control the classroom. That is how they list it. But they are not talking about tyrants of like,
Authoritarian.
I said no one talking. Like, it's just more like, are you as the teacher the one who is steering the classroom energy? Or are you a teacher who's more of has the tiger by the tail? You know, you're not controlling the tiger. You're just on a ride with the tiger, essentially. So it's a good definition of it, but it's not the only definition of control. And therein lies the misunderstanding.
And then we see, especially Elsa's father, who has now got a lot of anxiety and fear because, could lose one or both of his children. And you can tell, the parents do care a lot for their children. But his idea, since he is, running a country, is control, is suppressing others. Is, control
More
is
totalitarian, I'll say that.
very totalitarian, dictating the terms of existence.
Let's be really honest here.
Mm-hmm.
There's little hints he was not a very good king.
Oh, especially in the second movie, we find out just how much not a very good king.
Like, he was not actually very good. Because if you're a good ruler, you don't need totalitarian. Again, it's not unlike classroom management. If you're a good teacher, you're good at teaching, you don't need to be a totalitarian management of your classroom energy.
A properly running classroom, that's had a good teacher, even when she leaves, will still finish their lesson.
They'll manage themselves because they know what the teacher would have wanted them to do. I even saw that happen with my own students and was like surprised that I didn't have to be there as the presence. I once walked in one day and they all had their heads on their desks and I was like, oh, what happened? What did you all do? And they wouldn't talk and I'm like, I need to know. Is anyone bleeding? Shake or nod, shake yes or shake no. And they all went no. It's like, did anyone light a fire? Was there fire, even if it is gone? And everyone was like, no. Like, why would you think that? And I was like, is it likely the principal or any other teachers will come talk to me about something that happened because I need to know that? And they were like, it's like, okay, you can come up and whisper and not tell me who, but just what. And that is how I found it. Like, and it was because they got out of hand. And there was a little yelling and somebody grabbed something from someone else. I did eventually find out who. But they snatched, and someone else yelled, and then someone fell because of the snatching. Because they were tug-of-warring, essentially, over, it was a pencil. And because of that, they were all like, let me put my head down. That make sure they know I was not part of this, Miss Fink. And I was like, you all actually solved this problem on your own. And as long as there's no retribution, and also I hope that if you have not already returned whatever was snatched, you do by the end of the day, it's got to be fine. To which, when I told other teachers about this, they criticized me for not punishing any children. I'm like, but they managed themselves. And the pencil got returned right before the buses arrived. So as long as there's no hard feelings, so I'm not going to have drama the next day, what is the big deal? Why should they be like marked against? They had a moment. They're children. They're literal children. I'm not expecting them to act like adults. But yes, I was criticized by my fellow teachers, to which I just decided those people have bad opinions. And I told my mentor teacher that, and she was like, you don't know the history of those teachers, but I would agree with you.
But yeah, so that is how we see the creation of this future monster. Is instead of learning how to utilize and control when her powers manifest, she's instead suppressing it in all forms through isolation without any additional skill improvement. So
yeah, she's not learning to control it better, like actually being able to like call it on command.
So instead we get a binary situation of either it is entirely off or it's entirely on.
Rather than it comes when I call.
And so we really just get they mix the Snow Queen story with the Jekyll and Hyde story
Mm-hmm.
of, her powers are just purely Jekyll and Hyde. It's either none or way too much. And there is the monster, very simply made. And then, well, how do we get to redeem? Well, we still see throughout that even though they've separated, these siblings do care for each other. No matter how much the rest of the world changes, their love for each other doesn't. And that is the in for how we can redeem them, because there is still something that the monster cares about. And there's still someone that cares about the monster. Of most redemption arcs are more believable when they have a social structure around them.
I'll say this. I really think redemption arcs are far more believable when you see that this person has love in their life. Some kind of love. And not just that they love, say, a rock, but that there are creatures, if not people, also who love them back. Like, I find redemption arcs so much more believable when I see that this character has essentially opened themselves up to vulnerability and flexibility. You cannot love and be loved by someone else without a certain amount of flexibility of self. Because people have differences of opinion all the time, even minor ones, like the definition of a mentor versus a parent. But it is love that means that you don't give up even when there is a misunderstanding or a disagreement. And so when I see a character who does act kind of bad, like kind of villainous, but I see that they have one or more people and or creatures who love them, I see that they at least there is a possibility of redemption then. Because I see that they're willing to love others, which means you have to be vulnerable to love others. Because your heart is sort of walking around with someone else and you don't have control over them. And then you have to yourself be flexible in order to receive love from others. You can't be stiff and shielded in order to feel the love of others. And so if I see a villain who also, or somebody who's just behaving badly and like kind of seems villainous, but maybe not entirely, but I see that they have several people and or creatures also who love them and they love back, then I see that here is somebody who can be redeemed. Now, will we then see that in the story? Well, I don't know, but at least I find that far more believable than people who live incredibly isolated and there's nobody they're close to, nobody they care about, nobody cares about them, of like, yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing to even like incentivize for them to try to redeem themselves, because one of the best things about being alive is the love we can feel for others and that we can feel from others. Like, we are all separate, and yet with love, we don't feel alone. And that is tremendous. And so if somebody is entirely isolated themselves from that, then no, why would they want to redeem themselves? They don't have an incentive. Nothing.
But that is how we see then it play out, of why it's still believable, because it's still in the end Elsa's love for Anna and Anna's continual love for Elsa that lets Elsa redeem herself. Of Elsa changes because she wants to live up to the person Anna believes she is and loves.
Yes.
And that's why everyone enjoyed it, because it didn't have to be complex to still be enjoyable, to still be believable. It was, in the end, it was a very simple story that we could all get behind and relate to, because we've all wanted to be better for someone. Even if we couldn't
Mhm.
manage to be better for ourselves, we could still manage to be better for someone else.
Most people can't manage to be better for themselves. Because if you're sick, you can't really heal yourself. You need other people to help you. That's why self help does not work independent of
Self-help when
other.
it was self-help when it was created was not supposed to be done alone. Self-help was simply meaning self-directed.
Yeah.
But it's like any self-directed learning, there's a lot you can do on your own, but you do need someone else to help you and guide you.
And just offer another perspective.
Yeah. And that's why real self-help, even at the beginning, was, what we now think of as group therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a group of people in a similar situation discussing the problems of each person and how they would, suggest the other person do it because it's easier outside yourself. And then you might also get tips to yourself as well by the nature of you having similar difficulties. But yeah, self-help where you just do it alone in the quiet of your room with a book, no, it doesn't work because you wouldn't have been here in the first place if you are capable of fixing it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it took an entire group of people to convince Anna that no, someone you just met wanting to marry you is a bad idea. It's not a good sign. They are truly sus. And as we all learned from Among Us, just shoot them out the airlock. They are too sus to be around.
Tom.
I mean, in the movie, they did figuratively shoot him out the airlock. They shot him off, a catapult back home.
I do not remember there being a catapult to put Hans in.
Was it just
It was
a
just the
force
snowball,
field?
and that's in Frozen Fever.
Mm. May have fallen asleep towards the end.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was just told, like, be gone and never come back.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and that is sort of the simple basis of a redemption arc. And that's why I wanted to go over that one first, because Frozen definitely has the simplest one to discuss.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, so what should we talk about next? V for Vendetta, Divine Secrets, or Clueless?
They shoved Hans in the cargo hold at the end to send him back to his family. Yeah, that's what it kind of looked like to me, too. I mean, frankly, what's his name? From Weaseltown also. They, frankly, in my opinion, deserve to be together.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely showed some interesting truths about international politics.
Like, yeah, because those two are from the same place, I thought.
They were neighboring.
Y'all, like, just don't even trade with them. Those people sucketh much.
Yeah, should we go into slightly more complex of Clueless? You seem to have some opinions about that.
I didn't have that much opinions, but sure, because what can we do short before we go to the break? So
Well, I mean, Clueless, while keeping simple, does go to the other side of the redemption arc. Of, like we'll discuss later on for most of the rest of these, often your main character that you're doing a redemption arc for doesn't yet know they need redemption. They don't realize yet how toxic they've become. Like, and Clueless is definitely a good example of this. Of where Cher thinks she's a great person. And through the story realizes, oh, no, you're not that great. You're not that even that good a friend.
she's a total Karen. She and Dion are both Karens.
And that is what, eventually she realizes, like, oh, no, this is bad behavior. This is actually toxic. You got to change. And that's why it's sometimes hard, is people don't realize, like, if you don't like your character at the beginning, you're like, these are then maybe you need to redeem your character. And that's what they end up doing in Clueless, is someone who thinks they're great, and how do you get them to realize, no, they're not? But it also illustrates the whole, nobody thinks they're a villain. No matter how much they may act like a villain, especially from an outside perspective, no one thinks they're a villain.
Like, even when they're treated villain, like they're treated like by others as a villain, they still think they're being misunderstood, or those people themselves are villains, because I am obviously not a villain. They will talk themselves to protect themselves from that. So if and again, that is actually the useful utilitarian use of your character having friends and other loved ones, because now if your loved ones say, hey, what you did, that's some straight up villainy there, then they might listen. But from people that, like, they're not already that attached to, or they already don't value the opinions of those people, them saying, hey, you're acting villainous, they're just be like, you just don't understand me, I'm special with my special eyes. So therein lies the problem of, like, if you are looking to redeem a character, they need friends. They need close friends. And they probably need multiple friends, because it's hard when it's just one other, because essentially, think about it, if you have two people, then the voting is locked, because it's a tie. If they disagree with each other, it's a tie. There's no way to break it. You're going to need at least 3, if not 5. So that means a 5 means your villain or your character you're hoping to redeem, and then 4 friends. And I am not talking about the dog at that point. Like, they need 4 friends to go, hey, this is not nice behavior.
And at least in modern times, the phrases that do tend to get this across is either cold-blooded or, some reference to a snake, of, you would make a great snake.
Oh God, snake of the grass.
Of the, you are surprising people with your behavior in a negative way. And that's where they have to start going, wait, they're misunderstanding this. They can't, things like, no, if someone did that to me, that's how I would feel. Why you just did that?
Mm-hmm.
You need these people to give the commentary that their own mind is not giving them. And that is what we see in Clueless, is Dion a little bit, but more so, what was Brittany Murphy's character?
Ty.
And, Paul Rudd.
Josh.
Give these commentaries. Of these, say you're altruistic, but these have you're just doing this for personal motive.
Yeah, Ty and Josh are more honest to share about what they really think of her behavior.
But I mean, Clueless has been popular for decades now. Even though if you separated Cher out from the story, especially at the beginning, most people like, I don't want to watch anything with this character. But the way they do the redemption and the way, they change things around in perspective keeps people watching. It's such an interesting change. It's sort of a proto unreliable narrator is when you have redemption arcs of, it's not that the person's entirely unreliable, it's just their perspective is warped. And so the audience is taken on this journey with them as we straighten out their perspective to be more honest with the surrounding world they live in. Which gives potential for a lot of surprises throughout the story. All right. Shall we take a break?
All right. Do you have something to drink? Do you have a snack? Now is a wonderful time because we're about to take a little 10-minute break. And when we come back, what will we discuss, Tom?
Time for V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta. All right. And a more complicated redemption arc. So, see y'all back in a few minutes. Beep-a-da beep. Beep-a-da beep. Beep-a-da boop. Fart, fart, fart. Your time.
Hello. Welcome back.
Everybody get a snack or something to drink.
Snack,
Or a
snack.
renewed reason to live.
It's not always easy finding those.
It is allergy season here again. I know. I can already hear you go again. Like, yeah. Because it's been rainy, but also cooling off. Because you see, at a certain point in South Mississippi, it gets too hot for anything to blossom. And if it's not blossoming, it's also not sending out pollen into the world. But now it has cooled off a little, so it's like highs in the mid 80s, which again is like lovely tropical season for things to blossom and send out pollen. And Tom and I are just like sniffle, sniffle, sniffle.
Why does this never end?
Hello again, Megan.
It didn't get hot enough to kill everything off, and it didn't get cold enough either.
Yep.
It just keeps going on.
Ah. I'm glad you're all caught up, Carrie. Okay. So, V for Vendetta.
Go on. I know you've watched it more than me. All right, I'm just going to say I'm too tired to actually like figure out how to say things nicely. All right, so we talked about Cher in Clueless. I want to make sure everyone understands. I'm not talking about the musical artist, but Cher in Clueless is very much a Karen. Like she literally negotiates grades with her teachers that she has not earned. I mean, that is if there was ever a I want to speak to your manager vibe, that is it. Of I want what I am not entitled to. Okay. But there is another kind of female trope, and I don't know what it's called, but it is related to Karen. It is the young female ingenue who absolutely trusts authority, which is like, excuse me, you are a female in this world. You are always oppressed. You are never trusted, as far as like your opinion over a man's opinion or your perspective over a man's perspective. And yet you're like, no, authorities will take care of me. I am safe. Police will never be wroth with me. And everyone will treat me well. And it's like, honey, I don't know what world you're living in, but I want to smoke some of that. And that is very much Natalie Portman's character in V for Vendetta. I mean, breaking that naivety, that childish naivety of, that there is just innate justice in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That most, everyone's just going to act their best towards you.
I absolutely understand when cishet white guys believe there is innate justice in this world. Because for them, they are living the closest example of there being innate justice. Like, not that they always get justice, but they do get it more than everybody else. So I get it when they're like, but if you just go to the authorities and tell them, surely they'll go find the person who did it. Like, no, honey, that's not how this world works. So, which is why I do not go to cishet white guys for, help. Unless what I need is a big bad baddie to like be behind me going, yeah, give her stuff back. That's different. I will definitely go round up a white guy for that. No. So, but when I am looking to commiserate with others about how, I just can't catch a break as a woman, that they're always giving the promotions to the men at my company and they're not giving them to me or my fellow females, or they're always putting me in a subordinate position even when I do get a promotion, and I'm never getting as much of a pay raise as the guys are apparently getting, who are getting like whole dollar pay raises, and I'm getting whole dime pay raises. Like, I don't go to cishet white guys for commiseration. I go to people of color, usually female women of color, on purpose, because they have it even harder than I do. So I feel like I'm less likely to like, oh no, if you just go talk to your boss about that was an inadequate pay rate. Like, although sometimes sometimes I have still gotten that talk from like a black woman, and I'm like, what is this? And what world are you living in? And can I smoke some of it too? But Evie is definitely in that of like, oh, if you just go talk to, they'll fix it. Like, honey, you're living in a totalitarian regime and you're a producer for a journalist news station. Like, how are you this delusional?
Well, obviously, that's what they were looking for. So, she would continue putting out their propaganda.
Yes. And I mean, we know this is accurate because Fox News has so many female journalists, I say loosely and in parentheses. So there are, like, it's like this toady trope, because these women will become Karens later. And that is like the one thing I've noticed is these kind of like tropes, this character in real life who's like all innocent, like, surely the authorities will fix my problem, will become Karens, where they're like, oh no, I deserve to talk to your manager and I deserve to get this meal for free or whatever, just because I am unhappy with something minor and unimportant. Like, that is the next step up, is this toadying behavior. And what V does is he takes away all what little she had of a reputation, because that's what she was banking on. That's what the Evie character was banking on, was her reputation working for this state-run news propaganda station, that she would be trusted and that she could go about her life being like given the benefit of the doubt. And so when V gets her implicated on camera and it seems like she's in cahoots with him, he has taken away all of her social currency. And she realizes it very quickly. So she's not as innocent as she even portrays herself. She is not quite as innocent as she like is trying to tell V she is. And what I like is V's like, oh, what a shame. Oh, how will you live? I guess you will have to live here with me. Oh, you want to go out in the world? Okay, best of luck. So a lot of I understand where people are like not quite understanding why we have V for Vendetta on the list. And they're like, but this episode is about female redemption arcs. Are you talking about the Doctor? who's doing the experiments on V and the other people? No. No, I'm not. And I mean, that's barely a redemption arc anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. Peace when you're already, almost dead. No, that's not redemption. So what I wanted to talk about is Evie's redemption arc. And really that is the focus of the movie. Even though it's couched as this is a man, everyone will appreciate a story about a man. Haha, switcheroo. It's really about Evie.
Because Evie is the one who lives on. Evie is the one who's supposed to carry on this plan. V is getting old and V is getting tired and can't keep doing this. And V doesn't want to continue on. So essentially V went and found a replacement. Someone could carry on the mission.
But also, like, Evie understands, like, because she was no dummy. Even when she was working at the state-run news propaganda station, she understood what they were doing. She didn't quite understand all of the implications, but she was smart enough to, and she was doing a decent job doing her job, but that was the problem. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. It's better for everyone if only incompetence work for the propaganda. Okay. Because when propaganda is very successful, it's very dangerous. And I'm not pointing out any one government or civilization or regime in this regard. I'm really not trying to single out anybody. You see it all over human history. That's the problem.
Well, to me, the easiest way to summarize and explain propaganda and that it can be effective is advertising. Advertising is all about increasing profit. If the advertising did not have a capacity to show directly that it increased profits, then that advertising disappears. The part where advertising continues constantly and is actually how the internet now mostly works shows you how effective advertising is, and that's just to get people to purchase something they may not necessarily need. Propaganda is where the government says we need people to continue trusting how the government works and to not try to change it.
I want to make it clear, though, propaganda is not strictly government only.
No, it is
or
any bit of psychology.
Only. You can have propaganda not just about politics or government. You can have propaganda, say, the propaganda for feminists, like the TERFs, and against feminists, like, I don't know, the whole American conservative movement. So you can have propaganda that's not even like that well organized, that a lot of other people, a lot of other groups have a vested interest in essentially regularly retelling a particular narrative. Like, so you'll see propaganda anytime people are being oppressed, or there's the potential to oppress or suppress. You're going to see propaganda. And essentially what propaganda really is about setting the narrative before the narrative naturally evolves.
Like, that is why people who are rich hire publicists to very quickly set the narrative in their favor. Because otherwise, there would be no narrative that would ever speak positively about anyone who was very rich. The part where people worship billionaires or politicians is truly disturbing because by their nature, they're not people anyone should trust.
No one gets to be a billionaire by being beneficial to society. No one. And if you think there's an exception, you have taken in the propaganda. Because they are skimming the money off of all the regular working people. That is how they become a billionaire. They are selling something and they are saving the money up that other people need to live. Other people are doing without, so billionaires have more than enough. That is how billionaires work. So, again, you can have propaganda not just about government or politics or even only corporations. You can have propaganda that's not even well organized and yet it is still effective. So, for instance, one of the things I did want to talk about today is in my research for this episode, I came across a psychology article talking about referencing a book where this one therapist, this clinical therapist, had seen literally thousands of female patients in her life. And she said, in the thousands of patients she had seen, not one of them ever said they did not love any of their children. Not a one. While she had scores, hundreds of female patients who would say how much sometimes they hate their mother or they definitely don't like their mother. Not a single woman in her decades of practice ever said she did not love any of her children or even that she did not like any of her children. Whether we're talking about adult children or we're talking about children, not a single patient in decades. And like in the book, she talks about how it's our society does not allow women or people who identify as women to even consider that they might not love one or more of their children. That you can't call yourself a mother and you can't be a good woman if you don't love your children. Despite the behaviors of some women being very clearly not loving. But even in their own minds, they cannot even conceptualize of not loving their children, even when they do not behave in a loving manner to their children. And that is the propaganda that people who identify as female are given. And they're spoon-fed this whether they want it or not. And so part of it is if you are a woman and you become a mother, then of course you love your children. And so like when they do terrible things to their own children, they say it's in the name of love. That is not what love is. But they say to themselves and to everyone else, it's because I love them. No, that is not what love does. So again, this is not only something that writers can take advantage of when doing, again, painting a redemption arc for a character, but also keep in mind about what are the things like that females in your story or in your world building like are given of it's not negotiable. So like again, loving your children as a mother is not negotiable in our society if you identify as female. Like there's no way to not love your children. If you don't love your children, you're automatically a villain. And you'd have to accept that for yourself. And nobody wants to believe or can conceive of them being an actual villain. Oh, they may do bad things, but they're not a villain. Because there's always a reason. There's always an extenuating circumstance of why they did a bad thing, but that still doesn't make them a villain. Even though, yeah, according to law, yeah, no, that's definitely villainy.
I mean, and that pretty much, is the whole discussion point of Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. Of the how, do you feel cared for? Do your children feel cared for? Do, and how our behaviors beget, further trauma? And how even when, and like, the thing I found interesting was, Divine Secrets, you see through flashbacks and stories how the mother was made the way she was, and then eventually you see all the bad behavior she really did do to her daughter. But you also see that she's at peace now. She's fine. But her daughter's not, and there is the you didn't, showing that you didn't finish your job.
Mm-hmm.
You found peace, but now you have to go heal others who were damaged by you. And that is what we see a lot with, and what we use as saying boomer behavior or Karen behavior is that, well, I'm fine now, so it's everyone else who needs to work on themselves. But you're not done yet then. You still have responsibility to society that enabled both the problem and the solution.
One of a series of conversations I had with our mother was, so the first time mom had diagnosed with cancer was kidney cancer. And she was concerned she wouldn't make it. So instead, she had a series of meetings with me to discuss all the things that she thought I could work on about myself. And also what I needed to know about my siblings. So I would work on them about this. I then countered that with going even further off the deep end as far as behaviors my mother would have considered and did consider inappropriate. And that kind of gave her a renewed interest in living. So that worked. But the last time she had cancer, when she had pancreatic and duodenal cancer, and I had a similar conversation with her, very truly like the last couple months of her life. I'm not done. I'm not, that there's more to work on for me as a personality. And she said, no, you're going to be fine. Everything you know right and wrong, and you figured things out, and you're going to be fine. And I said, well, what about, and I named, my siblings. And she said, I know you'll take care of them. I'm not worried. Which pissed me off. Because it meant, no, they're not done, but she's not worried about it anymore. That's my job now. And I explained, I am not their mother. Number one, they will not listen to me. And number two, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be the heavy in this. And I did not ask for it. They're not my children. And she said, I'll talk to them. But I think I'll talk to them was really, I'll tell them they have to listen to you. Just like, yeah, not what I wanted. But that was her perspective. Was my work here is done. And there's others who will carry on my work. I.e., my eldest daughter will carry on my work to finish raising the other children, who are all adults at this point. And essentially, it is pretty much what Tom just said, of that mom believed she was that I was no longer a toxic character, and that I would be, quote, set on the right path. And that I would make sure my siblings did not veer too far into being toxic or dysfunctional.
Whether you really wanted to do that or not. And like, there's the problem of V definitely worked in, for Vendetta to find someone who would have a personal interest in this, that they would relate and want to continue this change. You can't just randomly assign someone. Through various things I've been researching and interested in the past few years, one of the things I have been fascinated by is companies where CEOs hired the next CEO. and how often, no matter how good the CEO who hired the next one was at, like, running this company and making everything function and all that, how poor they are at finding the person to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really don't know what, gives them the good qualities they need to run this, and they're just thinking, oh, anyone else will automatically have the same interest I have. And so I've come across so many now, like 5 or 6 different CEOs from major successful companies who've all gone, I regret appointing this person. It was the
Mm-hmm.
worst decision I've made in my life. Even though they no longer have anything to lose in the game, it's just, they were invested in this company, and now they're seeing the company, truly fall down and crumble because the next leader they put in charge did not have the skills needed to run it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And, that is the great mistake of, you think someone's just automatically invested versus CEO. Often they're just interested in the money. Like, it's
And
hard at
over
that
the
point.
power
Yeah.
and the prestige.
And so, yeah, really in these stories, like, you have to find someone, if you want someone to take over, you need to find someone who's actually invested in it. Like, they have a lifelong want of improving this. And, that's where, yeah, Yaya works with it, because it's, they want to see their family improve. They don't want to see generations continue to be, hurt by these behaviors they help teach. So it's believable that you see them want that change. Otherwise, yeah, you need to bring in friends who want that person to be someone they like being around, because they already care about them. But they can't stay around them if they continue to be detrimental to the world. Yeah, everyone talks about, in college, you have these crazy friends who do all these weird, strange things. But we tend to lose track of those people as we get older, because they are dangerous. They are, you don't know what they will cause or bring trouble to. So you can't keep staying around them. Every time they go out to party, the cops get called. That's not a good person to go party with. Like, why do you feel the need to do that behavior? So yeah, we would try to first, redeem them, to, improve them. And then if that's no longer possible, we leave. And that is what the redemption arc is about, is that people also the part of people change. Every decade, people are different. You can't
Well,
hold
also,
on.
you cannot help somebody who does not want to be helped. I mean, there's another one we didn't put on the list, 28 Days. Another Sandra Bullock movie.
I mean, there are so many of them in this same storyline.
But of, like, when we see Sandra Bullock's character at the start of 28 Days, she definitely does not see anything wrong with how her behavior when she's intoxicated is negatively affecting other people.
Mm.
That it's causing dysfunction in her relationships, and it's causing many people to leave, her sphere. And that even when she starts becoming aware, she is still like, no, that's your problem. That's not a me problem. Like, no, it is your problem because it is your behavior. And you're behaving in such a way that, like, no one wants to be around you. So if nobody wants to be around you, how will they ever, like, learn how really wonderful you are? You're just going to be hanging around more and more worse people.
You still there?
I'm still here. Are you here?
Yeah. I think something might glitch for a moment, though. But yeah, you're right. Like 28 Days definitely showcases that even more of that self-discovery
Mm-hmm.
that happens of part of the way the world is around you is because of your own actions. And that's what these all do very well, showing of the world doesn't just happen. Some of it is the individual and what they do and what situations they keep putting themselves into. I mean, even Elsa definitely keeps putting herself in an isolationist situation.
Yes. In
It's not
part because
anyone else's.
her father originally put her in that, and then she
Yeah.
keeps repeating it. So, for instance, when I was young, like a child, uh, my father often criticized me that I wasn't doing a good job of maintaining friendships, and that I had tumultuous relationships with my friends. Like, we essentially argued a lot.
Yeah.
And that I needed to work harder at, bonding with other girls. And I was like, well, I don't know how to be friends. Like, I was confused being a little neurodivergent child. I was confused on how to maintain friendships. And the advice that he and my mother gave me, particularly in my adolescence years and my early 20s, were not as helpful as they thought.
No, they weren't.
Say it that way. So by the time I was in my mid 20s, I realized like I just am not good at being a friend, but I want to be good at being a friend. So I need to learn how to be a better friend. First, I just asked all my friends how to be a better friend, and everything people told me was not helpful. And it was not what they wanted either out of our friendship. And it's like, well, why did you tell it to me if that's not even what you want? So what I did learn though was then to just listen to people. Just listen to what they say, what they are needing support wise, or how what they are responding well to and what they don't respond well to. And to just like essentially slowly turn that up, because I have learned people don't want to just hear, as soon as I met you, I knew I liked you. I knew. I just got this vibe. And it's just a matter of now figuring out everything about you and you figuring out everything about me that we mesh with, because it's cool. Like, and apparently now they call that love bombing, which I disagree with. But like, can't you just have love at first sight with friends? That's in no way sexual or romantic. You just know it when you meet somebody of like, hey, we are vibing together. This person is great. They are a person of good character. They're good caliber. They are trustworthy. They, are moral. They're not going to just stab me in the back. Also, they're not going to commit crimes. So cool. And that instead, like what adults want is essentially a slow burn. Even though interestingly enough, that is apparently not what people want romantically
Oh, absolutely
or
not.
sexually. They do not want a slow burn, which is weird to me. But friendship wise, that is what they want, which, okay, cool. And to just listen to people. And ultimately, I swear to you, y'all, what do people actually want out of friendship? They just want to be listened to. You don't even have to agree. They just want to be listened to. And I used to think that was so strange that all anybody wants is just to be listened to. And then I noticed how little people listen to me. And how like so many people, they make up their own backstory for me without ever finding out who I actually am or what my actual backstory is. And whatever their backstory is, they essentially copy over to mine. And that's what they think my backstory is. When, like, no. I led a very different life from most people. Now, ironically, I have my brother who listens to me all the time. So I don't need everyone else to listen to me. But what I've learned is most people do not have somebody like that in their life to listen to them. So it is the one thing that is missing out of most people's lives that they are still shopping around for.
I have been surprised at how much people really do just sort of fit others into their constructs of them and are surprised when their behavior differs.
I only noticed it because I learned the hard way how different my childhood and adolescence and early 20s was from like most people I know.
Mm.
I mean, part of that was because both our parents were bipolar alcoholics who self-medicated rather than, trying lithium. But part of that was also just being neurodivergent. We just led different kinds of lives. To some degree, my parents also listened to me. And so I had a lot of varied employment opportunities that other people did not get when they were young, because I would tell my parents what I was interested in. Oh, I want to be this when I grow up. I want to be that. And they would actually try to find me people who work in that field or that industry and like find a way for me to, work for them or at least chat with them and possibly get some sort of field work in that industry so that I could like try it out and see if it's something I wanted to pursue long term. And that was very helpful for me. But it also gave me a lot of varied job opportunities. And it gave me the thing I most wanted, which was to be respected by adults. That is what I most wanted, was be treated in a respectful manner by other adults. And the quickest way to get that when you're a teenager is to work with another adult and do a good job. And then they don't see you as a kid anymore. They see you as a coworker, which is awesome. Because then they're sitting there in the, for a coffee break or a smoke break and just being like, we're going to have a rough couple hours ahead. So here's what you're going to do. Okay, what am I going to do? And again, adults love to be listened to. So it works out really well for me in, the entry level kind of job, working with adults when I am quite young. And what I have learned the hard way is my face still looks quite young. So people still think I'm just out of high school, when it's like, they're like, how do you have this much experience? Like, I have literally been working 30 years. I have 30 years of Social Security payments made on my account because I have been employed off and on. Not that I was consistently employed over those 30 years, but I have been employed that long that I have a Social Security history that long. And they're absolutely shocked because most people did not start working where Social Security was being paid in their name when they were in middle school. But my parents did work quite hard at trying to get me opportunities where I could try working in various industries. And I found that while there were many industries I learned I don't really care for as much, I absolutely loved working as entry level because it meant adults respected me. It was the one thing like I was really interested that I couldn't get in my regular life. Because just being a middle school kid, adults do not treat you with respect, let alone in the Deep South. But when you're turning in your time stub sheet every week, it's like, Gloria's earning the hours, like, yeah, I take out the trash, I scrub the sinks, I scrub the toilets, and, I follow instructions. I pull my weight. So, and so since I very much enjoyed working in a more formal setting, my parents worked hard to find me as many job opportunities as they could, which was great. But it's the thing to realize is your villains or your toxic female characters do need to have some concept of how to maintain friendships. And No one just springs forth out of a womb knowing how to maintain friendships. No one. Not even neurotypical people. Everybody has to be told by someone what they like and they don't like, what they want and they don't want. And then they have to take that information in and figure out how to interpret it and then how to behave appropriately. Everybody has to be taught this. And I know this for a fact because I have cared for so many children. And I've not just cared for neurodivergent children, although the majority of the kids I've cared for as a babysitter and a nanny and an au pair and all that, and as a teacher, probably I would say 60% are neurodivergent kids because not as many people are getting in line to care for them. So I have more job opportunities for that. But also, I've taken care of plenty of neurotypical kids. And I'm here to tell you, none of them know how to play nice without, being taught to some degree or getting feedback. Like getting feedback on the playground, getting feedback at the sandbox, and taking that in and then figuring out. And even neurotypical children are, when they're toddlers, when they're preschool age, they're going to struggle with it a little bit because they're still figuring out that people exist outside of their own sphere. So, like fellow children's needs and other adults' needs are different from what they visually witness. So, everybody has to be taught how to be a friend. That is one of the things I've learned. Nobody automatically is gifted at it. If there's anybody who's pretty good at being a friend, it's because one or more people have taken them aside and really trained them well. And that could be a parent, that could be another caregiver, or it could be a fellow friend, a peer. But it's probably going to be a whole bunch of people, quite honestly. And so, again, like no one is an island. There's a certain truth there. And so, again, with a redemption arc, it's not a monster. A monster has no history. A monster has no one who is waiting for them to come home on time. A monster is an island.
And if you want to see how hard it is to make a monster with a background, look at what happened when Disney tried to make a movie about Cruella de Vil. And in the movie version, the live action movie version, they couldn't keep her as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
She has background. She has reasons for her behaviors. She's no longer monstrous. The person that sort of made her still is monstrous now.
We don't know as much about her background.
But I mean, they took what is considered one of the the top 5 Disney movie villains.
Yes.
And when they made a movie about her, they could not keep her as a villain. Like, that is one of the few things everyone agreed about watching that movie was Cruella in the movie was no longer a villain.
Mm-hmm. Even though still puppies,
Still puppies. Still, there's so many problems with this person.
Yes.
But we now know why she's behaving this way. And so instead, we're now hoping someone
will redeem her. Or that she will redeem herself.
Will fix the problems that, were created by society.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that is the definitely part of why we enjoy the redemption arc so much is it possible to redeem the monster? In which case, how? How do you get someone to actually change?
So, I think this is a good time to talk about The Good Place. Because I have to be honest, I really considered the Eleanor and the Tahani characters to be such a challenge to redeem. Tahani in particular. Because Eleanor kind of had a clue that she was shitty. But Tahani was so sure that she belonged in the good place. And I thought, like, and truly, like, watching the first season, I was like, well, first off, and Tom knows when I was watching it as the episodes unfolded, and I was like, this is the bad place. And Tom was like, really? I was like, no one has this much anxiety in the good place. Like, Chidi's stomach hurts all the time. That is definitely how I know it's the bad place. And Jason is having to constantly hide who he is. It's definitely the bad place. Like, you shouldn't have to hide who you are in heaven. But, like, again, Tahani is so snobbish. You know, her Duke rule. Duke is also the minimal school education level and also the minimal royalty like level to date. Like, what? And like, when you have that, when you are giving such arbitrary decisions, like, I don't date below Duke, and also you have to have gone to at least Duke for me, like Duke's okay, but
they show how much Tahani does not realize just how monstrous she really is.
And it takes a lot of backstory for Tahani to even see how she ended up at the bad place. And then it takes even more for her to see how she needs to help, like, her sister redeem herself.
Yeah, it wasn't just that her sister, it wasn't, alone that her sister made her monstrous. She
Like,
was already.
I really do think, like, they show very well that Eleanor, she kind of knows that she acts shitty.
Yeah.
But for Eleanor to have a reason to redeem herself, she has to form this relationship with Chidi and fall in love. Something that she's only ever done one other time, and it was disastrous. And that she keeps falling in love with Chidi. That is what gives Eleanor the incentive she needs to really work on herself, aside from, after she's found out and she knows she's in the bad place, but, still try not to go to the super bad place. And it's not like, oh, love redeems all. No, again, in order for a character to want to redeem themselves, they have to have a reason that they believe the world is worth the effort for redemption. And for Eleanor, it's Chidi's love that she wants so much because she feels this way about him and she wants it reflected back to her. And so she's willing to keep working at it to get that reflection. And even once she has it, then she's like, okay, I feel strong enough and safe enough to now work on the greater world. But again, that really does show a lot about how people are, because that in a lot of ways led to Eleanor going down this, terrible rabbit hole of terrible behaviors while she was alive, was because she wasn't surrounded by anyone who loved her. She was essentially sort of surrounded by comrade in arms, other shitty people who were like looking for someone else to act shitty with them and do shitty shenanigans. Sure. But she didn't have anybody who genuinely loved her. And unfortunately for Eleanor, that included her parents did not genuinely love her. So the only person she even kind of loved was her niece, which she talks about, and they never actually show. And they never really revisit again, which I think is kind of unfortunate. Like, she doesn't even go check on her niece. I'm like, you're checking on your mom, but you're not checking on your niece? Okay. No comment.
But but we also do see with the Good Place throughout the storyline of part of their recovery, of their redeeming, is their forgiveness of their parents. That their grudges that they keep wanting to, prove out are just hurting them. It doesn't actually hurt their parents. It is hurting their own behaviors and self. And so again, they have to find reasons to change that, to become better. And so yeah, you do have to you have to give your characters something in the world that they think makes the world a better place than they previously thought. Good. All right. Shall we take a break?
Okay. And when we come back, what will we discuss, Tom?
Whatever we have left at our list. I can't remember offhand. Other than, don't trust the bee.
There's Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. There's Everything Everywhere All at Once. Don't Trust the Bee. Earth Girls Are Easy.
So probably we'll mostly be talking about Earth Girls Are Easy and Everything Everywhere All at Once, because they are two very unique movies that there aren't enough like them.
Very true. Again, I'd like to point out, now is a lovely time to make sure you have something to drink. Is it snack time? Maybe it's snack time. And when we come back, we'll talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Don't Trust the Bee. And what's the other one we just said? That
Earth Girls Are Easy.
Earth Girls Are Easy. That my ADHD is for realsies. See y'all in a few minutes. Come out wherever you
If I must. Ready to talk about the movie that my father was very uncomfortable with growing up, how much I watched it.
You watched it so much. He even talked to me about it.
But only my parents, especially my father, could possibly think somehow watching Earth Girls Are Easy is a sign that his child's going to go gay.
It was that like hot Jeff Goldblum chest.
Versus scantily clad Gina Davis.
It's just a bikini. You're gonna see a lot of skin in Beach Blanket Bingo, you know. Carrie says, "I am shocked Megan has a hippo timer." LOL. Yeah, me too.
With enough, effort, all things are possible.
Mm-hmm. True.
Which is why I'm posting up some pictures in the Discord of something I saw in the last week that I just noticed when I was posting memes. Someone in their backyard made their own version of Stonehenge, but as like a table set. So like they can sit at Stonehenge and on it. I'm like, you can't convince me that's not supposed to look like Stonehenge. Mm-hmm. Even though it doesn't really. What?
Nothing.
Mm-hmm. So Earth Girls Are Easy.
Tell me, wax poetic. Tell me what little 8-year-old Tom found so fascinating and wonderful about this, since I assume it was not Jeff Goldblum's amazing waxed abs.
I mean, really, if you thought that there weren't enough of Jeff Goldblum's abs in Jurassic Park,
well,
you should go watch Earth Girls Are Easy, because
this is peak ab time for him. This is
this is 2 years younger and even more fit.
He is so fit.
And he takes his shirt off a lot.
A lot. He also doesn't button up his shirt hardly at all. So even out in public.
Yeah, no, it's Southern California.
It's like, I didn't know I had a thing for Jeff Goldblum, but now I might.
But I mean, honestly, what 8-year-old Tom liked about it is that it is very cartoonish. Everything, all the emotions and the behaviors are turned up to max. So when people they feel like at the levels of a soap opera. And whatever they do is very over-the-top comedic. I mean, it's Jeff Goldblum, but it's also Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans with not having much of a speaking role. And so instead they have to do physical comedy, which is what they're best at. But they're doing very sincerely. But now watching it, what I find really interesting is that story Gina Davis's main character has of how she goes from, I don't know how to put this other than ditzy nail tech of just, she doesn't want to think. She just wants the world to be the way it is nicest for her, and that's it. To she really starts thinking for herself and seeing people for who they are. And some people she actually likes more, and others she realizes she likes a lot less. Like her boyfriend of, it seems implied at least 6-8 years now.
Yeah. Like they at least were college sweethearts, and even before He was a doctor, like before medical school, because
Yeah,
he's
and
in
now
the
he's a full
football
doctor.
player.
He's not even interning.
Yeah, Dr. Liv.
Glory loves the movie in part because anytime where there is a large black woman cackling derisively at a white man is a good movie for her.
It's a good movie.
And this has a beautiful scene of, a nurse just cackling at how stupid this guy is. But yeah, like originally watching, I thought it was a very simple movie, but the more I watch it, the more it's like, no, this is art.
Yeah.
This is right there with John Waters. There's so much commentary about society in this movie that is positioned as just a silly little kids movie. Like it's not targeted even at teenagers. It's targeted at tweens. This is for that 10 to 13-year-old crowd.
Yes, it's very middle school oriented as far as what will appeal to them.
And so there's a lot of discussion of romance, but the sex scenes are these very short, very artistic pieces that, if you read a lot of romance novels, you'd be like, yeah, that's what romance novels say sex is like.
Yeah, it's not graphic.
At all, no. But, even then, there's still so much scenes of Jeff Goldblum's abs. You're going to see them a lot. But yeah, how she has to change. She realizes that her life and the problems in it are her own fault, and that she needs to change. It's not, her expectations of who people are is actually toxic. She keeps wanting her boyfriend to be someone he's not and never was.
Mm-hmm. And that's toxic. That she is not recognizing him for who he actually is. Which is that he's really having cold feet about getting married, that he was going along with it, but now he's second guessing this desire to get married. And she's really not like paying attention to that. Like he is tentatively trying to communicate that with her. We do actually see a few attempts he tries to communicate that he's maybe a little nervous about the wedding because the wedding is very close. And she is just not paying any attention. She's really not paying attention to him. And the reason is they are both disaffected. This relationship is not working for them anymore, either of them. It is very much a dysfunctional relationship at this point.
Like,
and
they're
both
they've
of them.
changed.
Yeah, they've grown apart, and they don't particularly like who each other has become. So instead of dealing with this head on and accepting this relationship may not be a long-term relationship, they're both trying desperately to ignore these factors about each other and the relationship, and it is not going well.
And so the aliens showing up is simply the catalyst for what had already been set up for a while already. Like, we see that even before the aliens show up, that this was already all in the works. All of this was going to crumble no matter what. The aliens just sped things up a little bit. And so that's the surprise part of, like, we see you don't even need a exceptional character. Gina Davis is playing as, ditzy and, average to, let's be honest, possibly a little bit low intelligence person as she can manage.
I don't think she's not low intelligence. I think she's anxious, and anxiety makes people act stupid.
That's true. Like, God, anxiety takes a lot of points.
Takes a lot of IQ points out of a person.
Yeah, so you're right. It is hard to tell because we don't really see her much without the anxiety.
Like, no, I think it's just anxiety because I see it in so many people I care for. when they are filled with anxiety, oh my God, like good luck getting them to add 2 and 2 together correctly.
But yeah,
I
we
have to
see
treat
that.
them like with kid gloves,
Yeah,
like an invalid or something. I have to treat them extra special because the anxiety just means that I can't even trust that they can walk out of the house without tripping. So I need to like literally walk slowly with my friends. Like I have seen this so many times. And thankfully, anxiety also makes people not notice things. So none of my friends have ever noticed that I treat them like they're suddenly elderly and possibly have dementia. That I suddenly like treat them like that because I've had too many friends have sudden injuries when they're in such an overly
yeah.
anxious state. And so I've never actually been called on this. And it would appear that since today is Labor Day in America, none of my friends are watching. So, and knowing them, they will not rewatch this episode.
Especially not this far in.
Nope. Not 2 hours in, not my friends. No.
But yeah, but we see that your character doesn't have to be at high functioning to change. We see her in the middle of all of her anxiety
And toxic
and
behaviors.
toxic behaviors.
I mean, honestly, to a low level degree, she is sort of a villain in her boyfriend, her fiance's life, forcing him to conform to this idea of monogamy. The call out works. I love
Someone knows.
I'm here. Don't talk too much shit about me. Oh, dude. Dude.
We
But
only do it out of love.
yes, Ted Gallagher. That is her fiance's name. But from Ted Gallagher's point of view, she's really forcing him to behave in a certain way, monogamous. And she's also forcing him to get married because he's really having doubts that this marriage will work, and she's not listening. So from his perspective, and it is a very selfish perspective. Ted Gallagher, excuse me, Dr. Love, please kill me. He's
not a psychologist or psychiatrist.
No, he's a medical doctor. And Dr. Love. Anyway, but she's not listening. She is like forcing him in a box that he does not want to be in. That is toxic behavior. Even though that's not the greatest crime there's ever been or anything like that, it's still not nice. It's not kind. It's not something that someone who loves you should be doing. They should not be forcing you to behave in a certain way that is not comfortable or natural to you, let alone for prolonged periods of time, especially when you're trying to communicate that to them. Of this does not fit for me. I am uncomfortable. They should be listening. Go, oh, I wasn't trying to force you, but I'm sorry. Talk to me about why is this uncomfortable or what is not working and let's figure out together what will work for you.
And the movie I think showcases really well in Julie Brown's character, who truly underappreciated artist right there. Of your friends are only as capable as what you tell them. So she only understands the problems Gina Davis has from Gina Davis's perspective and what that character's noticing. So she doesn't notice, she can't know that Ted is having cold feet, that Ted is having a lot of questions about the relationship in general.
Although it's been 2 weeks since Ted and what is Valerie, that's Gina Davis' character, have had sex. This is discussed in the beginning.
Yes.
And Candy, Julie Brown's character, is aware this is like, oh my God, we have to do something. We have to change. Like 2 weeks. What is happening? So there are signs.
Yes.
But a makeover is not going to fix it. That is definitely a skin deep issue. That is not I mean, honestly, a makeover is buying time.
Yeah.
And I know this from personal experience where that was the solution my friends had. Oh, we need to give you a makeover, which, oh, y'all. Oh, thinking back to all the dye jobs. Anyway.
So many colors.
And the theory that my Gen X friends had was, okay, we're going to give you a makeover and you'll wear my clothes and we'll dye your hair a different color and it'll be a seductive scene. And then after you've seduced him during pillow talk after coitus, then find out what's really going on, what's wrong. He'll feel ready to open up at this point. Like, y'all, early 20-something people. No. Let me tell you, people are not actually that willing to be brutally honest after coitus because they want to ride the good feelings. They want to ride all the endorphins and the serotonin and all that good stuff. And if you're afraid what you have to say is going to rock the boat, that is not when you're going to bring it up. You have to create a safe space for that. And that is definitely not something Valerie has done in her relationship. She has not created a safe space.
Oh no,
Neither has
always...
Ted, though. In Valerie's defense, Ted has also not created a safe space. These two people, you can make an argument, kind of deserve each other, but anyway.
Yeah, they were both prone to setting the narrative instead of discussing what is the real situation.
Yeah, they're both behaving in rather narcissistic ways.
I mean, so you kind of wonder, like, what else is going on? Because these people are both so anxious. They're so worried about things. Like, what else? Something else also is going on.
And anxiety does cause people to behave in a more narcissistic manner. It's something that I don't see talked about enough. People do behave in a more self-centered, self-involved kind of way, the more anxiety they are in that moment experiencing. And it's understandable why, because your body is giving you reactions and behaviors like your heart may be pounding, your palms may start getting clammy. Your body is reacting in ways that perhaps is surprising or you don't know why it's behaving that way. And so your focus is going inward of why body, why does my tummy hurt? And, my hands are sweaty and cold. And like, why is my heart racing? What is happening? So it makes sense that they're more thinking about themselves rather than other people's needs or what other people are saying in that moment. But nevertheless, at a certain point in a relationship, it can't always be about your sweaty palms and your racing heart. Even through your anxiety, you need to still be like, but how are you doing? Oh, things are going wonderful. Are they really wonderful? Because most people don't have wonderful days all the time. So how are they really going? Would a hug help? Let me just rub my clammy hands on my pants first.
But, her always with redemption ones, we do see you do need a social group around you to help you recover. Of when you're not sure about your own decisions, you do need a group to kind of help confer with. And like that's part of really the job Jeff Goldblum's character does provide is just sort of a sounding board for Valerie to notice her own behaviors and to start noticing what she has been avoiding looking at with her relationship with Ted. And that, yeah, there are things that aren't working. That
there are things she's not happy about. It's not just Ted suddenly brought another woman home when he thought Valerie was at a nail expo. It is more than that. It is that she too is unhappy in this relationship. She has been ignoring it and pushing it down for more than likely years at this point, it appears. Well, why? Why has she been pushing it down rather than trying to talk it out with Ted or moving on? having these aliens suddenly in her life that she's trying to keep away from dissection and also help them get on their way, because their ship is apparently not good at water. So they landed in the one pool. Okay. Um, Having someone else to focus on and even take care of and nurture is that catalyst for her to really start realizing that she's not getting what she wants out of her main romantic relationship. She's getting more, as much, if not more, out of her relationship with these aliens who truly crash landed in her pool than that she's been getting out of her long-term romantic relationship.
Oh, and as an aside, just purely an aside, there's so many Doctor Who references in this movie.
You just had to bring it up. You're like, I just need you all to know.
The ship is literally bigger on the inside.
Every one of the aliens has two hearts.
Has two hearts. The main alien has the ability to distract people and get them to feel affectionate for others with just a touch. And from a distance, I mean, please don't ever give the Doctor's sonic screwdriver that ability. It's already got too many things it can do.
I mean, it would just be a vibrator at that point in time.
It does feel like this is somebody's joke.
Like a commentary.
About the sonic screwdriver is a vibrator.
Yeah, I agree.
What would the Doctor be doing with the vibrator? Making everyone feel good and happy. And that is what he does throughout the movie. So if you want to see a little bit of some farce on Doctor Who in the late 80s, it's a good movie.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not that strong of a Damon Wayans or Jim Carrey part, so don't worry about them if you don't like them. They are very much side characters, just sort of there to help.
And they're not at their full Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans-esque.
Yeah.
And also, at any point, if either of those characters is annoying you, you can just fast forward. There's nothing about those two characters that is really moving the plot forward.
Well, I mean, they're the ones who keep causing chaos to move it a little bit forward. Like, they caused the ship to crash.
But I mean, like, as far as like dialogue and such, you don't really,
no.
You're not talking hardly at all. You're not really going to miss much.
Yeah, they don't really change. They don't do much for the emotional story. They're just the chaos factors to progress the plot a bit.
I mean, they really do act like children behave when out in the city, and Jeff Goldblum is the more adult character.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, he's taking these two on, a little vacation.
A Rumspringa.
I mean, it is literally brought up at the beginning. Go see the galaxy. It'll be great. What was I thinking? So, shall we talk about one of your new favorite movies of all time?
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
Yep. Is there any part of this movie you don't enjoy?
I mean, some of the conflict, especially in the first third of the film, I don't love just because it feels very awkward and uncomfortable. But that's just me personally. Like, the first time I watched it, it was important to the story that, this conflict and the awkwardness was an aspect of it. It did move the plot forward. It did explain some background stuff. So,
just why did this mother and daughter not understand each other at all?
But after the first watching of no, it's just I just fast forward usually to the like most of the IRS where there are
Mm,
scenes where they're just sitting there
yeah.
and Jamie Lee Curtis is like scolding. I just fast forward.
Truly such a special role for Jamie Lee Curtis.
The hot dog fingers later, that was different.
The Hot Dog Fingers love story.
Yeah.
That's the part that's just a
Yeah.
didn't see this one coming. I mean, the action story didn't see it as much coming of Jamie Lee Curtis.
As a love interest?
No, as in the action part of
Oh,
going toe to toe with Michelle Yeoh.
yeah.
I'm like, it's Michelle Yeoh. I expect some action. Hey Spence,
Hey, Spence.
can see you're awake and doing all right. Um, but just but yes, every time Jamie Lee Curtis shows up, it's just a what's going to happen now. I never know how they're going to use her.
Yes, they did use Jamie Lee Curtis for everything she's worth. I will say
Like
that.
all of her acting skills and qualities that she could possibly do in one movie.
All right. So Michelle Yeoh plays Evelyn Kwan Wang. Um, our favorite Ki Hui Kwan plays Wayman Wang, Evelyn's husband. Jamie Lee Curtis plays Deirdre. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Bo Bridred. Everything, everywhere, all at once. So so for this, I'm going to try my best to call the characters by their character name rather than the actors. So Evelyn and Wayman, and then their daughter Joy. Evelyn and Wayman's daughter, and then there's Deirdre, Jamie Lee Curtis's character. These are it's a parent about the parents, their daughter, and to a lesser degree Deirdre. Deirdre essentially is mostly used as a catalyst throughout the film. Since the film is in 3 parts, the first third is everywhere. Or is it everything? Is everything. The second part of the film is everywhere, and the third part is all at once. And they are actually named appropriately. So Evelyn, we start with, I'm just going to tell, since I know a lot of people haven't watched it because it came out in theaters first and it's only recently started streaming, I think just in the last couple weeks. Like literally maybe the last week or two, it started being available to stream. So I want to talk about it. Let me go over just the very basics. I'm trying my best not to ruin it for anybody, but Evelyn and Wayman have immigrated to America from mainland China. They run a laundromat, and they are, I would say they look like they're in their late 40s, early 50s, something like that. This is not necessarily the life that Evelyn originally envisioned for herself, but this is where she is. The problem is her life is falling apart. Her daughter does not really want to have much to do with her. Not like in a I hate you forever mom, but in a the child of immigrants who feels like Joy has to behave a certain way for her parents, particularly her mother, to be happy with her. And Joy, Joy's her own person with her own girlfriend. And her mother is not thrilled with this. And Joy is feeling a lot of conflict because she's definitely feeling like she can't be herself around her parents. This is a major issue in families, a major dysfunctional flag. When everyone in the family does not feel comfortable or safe being themselves, especially when who they are as themselves, it's not hurting anyone else, then, what is the issue? I'm being me on my own. Why can't I just be me? So Evelyn very much, to me personally, screams depressed. She's unhappy. And she's angry about it. And she hasn't been taking care of things like she needed to, such as the taxes. She hasn't been doing her taxes the way she needed to as a business owner. She certainly hasn't been consulting with other people. And, it's gotten caught up with her. She is under audit for the IRS. Things are not going well. And there is, to a lesser degree, there is a language barrier issue. Her parents, while they have immigrated here and they've been here for at least 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Her mother, Evelyn's English could be better. And this is creating a language barrier at the IRS, particularly with Deirdre, because Evelyn is having genuine trouble understanding, and Wayman, to a lesser degree, is having genuine difficulty quite understanding what Deirdre is saying. Because what they're talking about is not just simple English. They're talking about complex concepts. And this vocabulary just is not bandied about a lot in common, talk, like if you work at a laundromat, where, they're talking about deductions and what is appropriate business expenses. There's a bit of a language barrier. Evelyn and Wayman agree to bring Joy, their daughter, to the meeting at the IRS, and then don't. In part because Evelyn is still behaving as an overbearing mother to Joy. And Evelyn doesn't want Joy to help her with the IRS because then, she would lose a certain amount of power with her daughter. Her daughter would be more of a helper rather than it always being top down. Yeah, super advanced English. I know regular people who've, lived here, his families who've lived here more than 100 years who also have problems with the vocabulary at the IRS. So, yeah, but like Evelyn did not consult with a professional about this. Now, you can make some arguments. Maybe Evelyn didn't because financial issues. And these are valid arguments. Nevertheless, Evelyn needed help, and she could have asked Joy to help years prior when Evelyn's like, okay, read what this is saying in English and tell me what it means. But she did not want her daughter to help her, in part because she wants her daughter to listen to her and respect her, and she thinks her daughter won't respect her if her daughter is helping her, which, again, so many issues, so much dysfunction here. So we really see from the start that Evelyn has some toxic behaviors and toxic thinking. And then the story goes from there. Okay. That is the part I wanted y'all to understand, since I know not everybody is familiar with this movie, although I do hope that most people will watch it. It is super fun. As much as serious as my, explaining the beginning concept of where this movie starts with and then where it goes, y'all, where does it go, Glory? Spoiler, it eventually becomes an everything bagel. That is how absurd and ridiculous it becomes. So
but I mean, but the heart of the story is about just
it's Evelyn
this mother and daughter
relationship,
and how in every universe it's still messed up.
Yes,
there's not a universe where it didn't mess up.
So I wanted to make that clear about. It starts with Evelyn being a somewhat toxic character. She is essentially taken over responsibility and blocked Joy and Wayman from helping her in the running of the business. And because she has blocked the two of them, her husband and her daughter, from helping her with important aspects, such as the operation of the business and the money management and the time management and the tax management of the business is about to be foreclosed on by the IRS. They're about to lose everything. They are pretty much going to be homeless. And Evelyn doesn't want Joy to know that. She doesn't really want Wayman to know that. And it's like, they all go find out when, like, you sleeping in a car. But Evelyn is trying her best. And meanwhile, among all of this mess comes the other universes. Come to wreck her life more. Like, can it get worse? This is pretty bad. And like, yes, on top of all of that, the universes, multiple universes, could just come wrecking through your life like a wrecking ball and just absolutely cause even more chaos. It could always be worse, as my mother used to say. When I'm like, oh, this is so terrible. She's like, it could be worse. How could it be worse? And she's like, an elephant could tear through the house and then we would be missing a whole wall. And I'm like, is that really worse? She's like, mosquitoes. Like, all right, there. Mosquitoes, raccoons, and cats. That, yes, coming in the house.
But unlike most, though, they do use this for great comedic effect.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's fun. It ends up being a very fun story. While the story is very serious, a lot of moments are comedic as can be. They really do try to balance out all the different types of emotional elements.
What is effectively happening in the story is Evelyn is knocked off of her stance. She has a stance. She is keeping Joy at Wayman at bay. She's trying to keep Deirdre at bay. That's not going to work because the IRS has power. But she's trying to keep everyone arm length away. And when all the other universes start coming crashing into Evelyn's world, she is knocked off of her stance. So she has to suddenly deal with the universes as they come at her. And she has to be in the place of somebody learning. A situation she has not been in a long time. And that is where she starts seeing how little she knows. And then also she starts seeing the pain that she's been causing other people. And it is through that she is causing pain to the people she loves the most, that she sees a reason to redeem her relationships with people. And then she finds out it may be too late to redeem those relationships, the relationships that matter most to her, as well as the new relationship with Deirdre. The relationship with Deirdre she has in her home world, as well as the relationship with Deirdre that she has in several other worlds, including the hot dog hands world. Y'all, wild times. But a new relationship to her, she learns is also valuable because, let's be perfectly honest, it's nice to be loved. It's nice to have people feel tender feelings about us. And when we welcome that tenderness, we then feel more tenderness that we want to share with others. And then the world is less scary. The more tenderness and love that we can share with each other, the less scary the world becomes, even though still facing IRS demands. And even that does get addressed, by the way. Like, every time I'm like, they've just totally forgotten Evelyn has a real life that she still has to live when all of this hot mess, everything bagel ridiculousness is over. And they're like, no, we did not forget. Evelyn has a life she still has to live. So I have actually been pleasantly surprised watching it that they still address both Evelyn's regular mundane life as well as all these other ridiculous universes and not so ridiculous but scary universes. I mean, frankly, they did everything but the tentacles, really. So again, we see how you can have this lovely redemption arc even among chaos. So much chaos. Super fun. But to be perfectly honest, this redemption arc is actually what gives all this chaotic, ridiculous, absurd story its heart. Also, James Hong yelling direction in the story as another character.
James Hong playing Grandpa.
Yes.
Gotta love James Hong.
Also, I love that they're like, "Hey, Evelyn, yo, and Ki Huan Wang, like, let's just have like some like romantic stuff," and like suddenly showing them in what would be those kind of films? Like, it's not K-pop, it's but you know those sort of like little romantic dramas, like the Chinese romantic dramas. You remember? You know what I'm
I mean,
talking about, right?
yeah, I mean, it's soap operas.
Yeah, it's like ooh.
I mean, there's Romance of the Three Kingdoms soap operas, and then there's modern soap operas. They put them in, like, they just put them in everything
Yeah, it was good times.
to show this relationship and this wanted relationship they have.
Of like, this is how these two people connect in any world. I rather liked it. I think because they showed it that way, then it wasn't so odd when it's Evelyn and Joy as two rocks, as two boulders with googly eyes in a desolate world. And that they still connect with each other and they still like love each other, but also that their pain is real and they need each other to console. I once saw a quote or something that I thought was just so lovely. And it said something to the effect of, a friend is a person who sings you your song back to you when you have forgotten how to sing. And it's like, yes, that is what love does. When we have forgotten our own song, our friends and loved ones are there to sing us our song back to us. So we remember who we are and what we are trying to do in the world. And so, even though Everything Everywhere All at Once is absolutely ridiculous, and yes, did you like Ratatouille? Oh, there's a solid what, at least 5 minutes of their own version of Ratatouille World in this movie. It's like a solid 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think Ratatouille was ridiculous as a cartoon? Well, wait till you see it as a live action. In a
There are
hibachi
animatronics.
restaurant. Yes, in a hibachi restaurant.
Yeah.
Because, of course. So, again, like, the redemption arc for Evelyn is not the only thing happening in the story, but it is actually what gives the story this lasting heart. And it makes the real challenge of the story feel real, even though it is absolutely absurd.
And it's also seemingly beyond possibility.
How
Like,
do you
Evelyn
redeem
should
an
not be
everything
able to.
bagel, y'all? How do you do it? Like, it's the Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, but in the like Doctor Strange multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, we see in part that Evelyn has to redeem herself so that she can then be healthy enough to redeem others.
Because Joy needs redemption.
And that is the real secret to saving the universe, is the whole story, is the whole concept of no one is beyond redemption. As long as they are still alive, they can still be redeemed. They can still become better. But you have to be able to show them that there is something better in the world than they thought. And so the surprise is, that Evelyn can improve. Because apparently most universes, Evelyn never does.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because, I mean, really, at the start of the film and like probably 20 minutes in, I was like, Evelyn is an irredeemable character. And why? Because she doesn't want to change. Not because there's anything really wrong with Evelyn or Evelyn's problems are too big. Like, no, it's just I'm like, oh, I know this character. This is my own mother. She don't want to change. She don't see anything wrong with what she doing, even though her life is in freaking ruins. Oh, yeah, I have been there trying to get my mother to see that her life is like in utter shambles and it's not going to get better on its own. And the first step she has to do is she has to accept that it needs fixing. She's like, fine, where do I start? I'm like, you need to start with you. You are the problem. You are the reason it got this way. You're the one who neglected all the things that shouldn't have been neglected, and you've been paying attention to the crap that is not important. So what if I kiss girls, Mom? That is not your business. So what if I kiss boys? Again, not your business. Won't you worry about the rent?
Yeah, so it does end up surprisingly being a relatable story. Even though anyone trying to describe it will describe a just utterly insane concept. I mean, Doctor Who looks so period accurate and dramatic compared to this movie.
Well, but I mean, it really is like even when people have absurd problems, they also have real relatable problems. When life gets absurd, still the problems are relatable. It's humans are humans even when they're not humans.
Even when they have hot dog fingers, is that what you're trying to say?
Even when they're boulders or bagels. They just need someone to love them. And then that they can love in return. I mean, honestly, the real truth is, and what really like, I mean, I'm like, yeah, we're 2 hours and 50 minutes into this. I don't know who would still be watching this, particularly on this particular subject, but I'm going to say it anyway. The bottom line is, if you are writing about humans in particular, the way people redeem themselves is they want to love someone else, and they then through that see the world through that person's eyes, and they see maybe the world is not safe for the person they love, and so they want to help change the world to be safer. Everybody needs someone to love. We heal ourselves when we love others. We are not healed by others' love. We heal ourselves through the giving of our love to those who are receiving it with respect. Whether that is a pet or it's a fellow human, that is actually how we heal. And once we heal, we then wish healing for the world. That is how humans work. So I really don't think I'm out on a limb on this one. But maybe I am. I don't know. It's just that's how I see the world. So if you see someone who is broken, who does not want anything better for the world, who is, I wash my hands of the world, the actual way to help them is give them someone to love. Whether we're talking about a puppy or a kitten or a baby or just someone who's more broken than them.
I mean, what's sort of the point at the end of 28 Days?
Yes, a plant. A plant and a
Start
puppy.
with a plant.
Right? But that it is through that and seeing what your love can do for someone else and how they grow and they appreciate the love, that act of that, essentially it's validating your love. When you love someone else and you see how they blossom amidst your love, it validates your love and you then heal. Because a lot of when the world really breaks a person, it is the world broke them by saying you're invalidated, you're worthless, nobody wants you, all those terrible things. And so the way that they heal, no one can heal you. You have to heal yourself. So the way you heal is where you feel that your love is validated again. Not by somebody saying it, but by you seeing how your love helps someone else. It supports them in their blossoming, whether we're talking about a literal plant or we're talking about a puppy or a kitten or a bird or whatever, or we're talking about an actual human being. That is how people heal themselves. And everybody has to heal themselves. No one can come and heal you for you. Wouldn't that be lovely? Whether you want it or not, you'll be healed. No, that is unfortunately not how it works. You have to want the healing and then heal yourself. You have to do the work. And the shortcut is when you have something else to care for and you see how your love is good for them. Again, whether we're talking about a dog or we're talking about a human or we're talking about an adult human, whatever we're talking about, love is good. Like real love that is not expecting something in return. Not when if it's transactional, that's not real love. If it's just here, I give this to you, I expect nothing back, although it would be nice if you liked it. It'd be nice, but it's not required. I just want to see you do well in the world. I just want to see you supported. That's all. That kind of love, people blossom with that kind of support. It's really helpful. And so when we see how our love supports others, we feel validated, and then we're like, wait, my love is valuable. I saw how it's helped them. If my love is valuable and I am filled with my own love, that means I am valuable too. And that is when people welcome healing, because they will not welcome it till then. And we actually see that in Everything Everywhere All at Once. We see Evelyn go on that journey because, in a way, because of a lot of her past, including her father, she doesn't feel like her love is valuable. And I mean, some of it is like Wayman doesn't really communicate well to her about how her love is valuable, and Joy doesn't exactly communicate to her that her love is valuable.
Although Joy also feels the same way now, growing up, of my love's not valuable. Like, that is also a central conflict that she then has to sort of translate over.
Mm-hmm. So that is what is happening. And again, in these redemption arcs, I personally don't think they are specific to female characters, that, it has to be about love and for the redemption. But I think that at least in like American westernized type civilizations, it is more acceptable for love to be part of the redemption arc than with the more masculine redemption arcs that are about validation, but a different kind. But the truth is, the same thing happens. The same damn thing happens. That's the truth. But we can't call it love when we're doing a masculine redemption arc. We have to call it validation, or, oh, he's become a real man now, or some crap. But the truth is, the exact same thing happens. We just can't call it love. Because, hey, fellas, is love not masculine? Apparently it's not. Whatever.
No, it's that you can't have. No, love is not in any way.
And yet, I'm going to tell you now, whether we're talking about babies of any assigned gender at birth or not, all babies need love to live. If you physically neglect a baby, they will die. Like, you still feed them, they still experience warmth, but nobody is touching them, no one is singing to them, no one is holding them. They literally die. They waste away. That is not just some babies. Oh, no, not the John Wayne of babies. He'll be all right. No. All babies waste away from lack of loving touch.
It is, and there's an actual diagnosis. It's just called failure to thrive. And it means that they did not get the attention and affection, and so they literally lose the will to live.
Yeah. So again, thriving requires love. That is not only true of infants, that is true of all human beings all the time. No matter they're masculine or feminine, butch or soft, everybody, in order to thrive, needs affection, touch, love. It's super annoying. But that's how it is. So, in order for any character to thrive, they're going to need somebody to hug them. Or at least sit quietly next to them where their arms are touching and their hips are touching.
Well, at least to, apply physical pressure to them. I mean, that is where with men, it is, there's side hugs, there's also claps on the back, but there is still
a little bit of
touch.
wrestling.
Yeah. But there has to be,
grapple hug.
Physical touch. Yeah. There has to be physical touch, though, for the body to understand this.
That you are safe, you have not been ostracized or thrown out of your village, and now will be left to be eaten by predators. The back of the brain is still functioning that way. So that is what every human being needs. And frankly, a whole lot of other mammals do too. Yeah. And it turns out other animals that are not even mammals need it. Like apparently some tree frogs actually need touch from other tree frogs or human beings with like little mucus covered fingers to just.
And as well as fish.
Fish like to be petted and they will pet each other. I cannot make this up. Like it turns out most living things need contact with their own kind and frankly will accept contact from others.
With one notable exception that we hope they don't ever touch. And that's grasshoppers. They never touch, especially not in any amount of time. Because that's how you turn a grasshopper into a locust. Is they touch. And apparently that serotonin turns them into locusts and become plagues. But everything else, yeah, they like touch. And they benefit from it. I mean, we've seen videos. Ants touch all the time. They like to just pat each other as part of their communication with their antenna. But yeah, no, they've really found grasshopper, the big legs on the back, if they touch a bunch with other grasshoppers, they turn into locusts.
So weird. I can't.
They turn into monsters.
We'll just let that sit on a shelf elsewhere.
Yeah, versus everything else, crabs, lobsters, they love to touch. Lobsters do that little train to find a mate.
What is the train?
A conga line across the ocean floor. They conga line to find, where's the mating grounds.
So they get in a line, they see another lobster, and they get in the line behind the lobster, and then
and they kind of grab onto the tail, and they conga. Yeah.
So no one will miss the mating grounds once someone finally finds it?
Yep. Like a half mile of lobsters.
Interesting choices. How do they know it's a mating ground?
I don't remember at this point.
Okay. But yeah, like just about everything needs affectionate touch. That is one of the useful uses of friends and pets.
It's why we now see these memes, because we are a bit more socially isolated of, I just need, what was that line? That meme sort of I need someone to lay on me and just squish me till my soul reintegrates into my body. Of the, just how much humans do need deep touch. Even the antisocial ones still have to get that touch in somehow. which is why your dog just wants to lay on you as well as your cat. Of like, they're just trying to be friendly.
Trying to give you what you obviously need so you don't become a villain.
I mean, there's a tragic story no one has told. The dog or cat are both trying to keep their
Human.
giant pet human from becoming a villain, as they just keep getting worse.
So, do you have any final thoughts for today, or is that our final thoughts?
I think that might be the final one, at least for me.
I think so too. Next week, we're going to talk about masculine characters defeating toxic gender roles. So far, we have Scott Pilgrim and A Christmas Carol. Do stay tuned for next week. As we explore how to redeem masculine male characters without calling it love or excessive touching. It's a challenge, y'all. It's a challenge.
It is.
Thank you also for being here and that you've made it 3 hours. If you are still watching it, you are the reason that we keep doing this. We hope you're getting something out of it and that you will let us know in the comments what you want to see next. Our next season after this, we're going to talk about writers promoting their work and how to do it, marketing and promotion, and everything else, including how to work with editors, all of the other side of writing. You know, the production side of it. We hope you will join us. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody. And if you are watching this and you'd like to join us every week after the show, we all go over to our Discord server, Unicorn Council Discord server, and hang out in the Clubhouse voice chat. If you are not a member of the server and you would like to be, the link is down below. If you do not see the link, or the link is not working for you, please let me know. It has a 25 limit. So I have to know when, like, okay, it's time to renew the link. But we'd love to have you hang out with us. I like to play Don't Starve Together with my friend and other people. If they also want to play Don't Starve Together, can play with us. We have a server or whatever they call it in the game. We have a little world. And we'd love to have you join us. And other people just do sort of study hall stuff. And we chat about anything and everything. Just a bunch of friends hanging out, and you should come too.
All at once.
You can come anytime. We'd love to see you there. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.